Today, we're going to talk about my sales numbers for January 2026. And I wish I could come on here and be like, you know what, I started off this year very strong, but no, that's not the way it worked out. My numbers pretty much turned out the same as the previous month, the month of December, which for me, at the end of it all, it's still pretty decent. I'm happy with those numbers. Of course, I want them to grow, not stay the same, but I'm still content with how my reselling business is going given the amount of time I put into it. But I do know that that's not the case for other resellers. The amount of money I make would not cut it at all for some other people, just because we all live different lives, have different needs. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today for the topic of the month. I'm going to be going over, from my perspective, is reselling really worth it? I'm going to break down my numbers even more than I usually do, and we're going to come to a number that will tell me how much I made per hour this month, and that's after expenses and taxes. It changes all the time, but we're going to look at just this month just to see, from my perspective, is reselling worth it or not? We'll get into that at the end of the video. For now, let's talk about some of these sales that went really well, sold for the most money and the fastest, and some of the sales that didn't do so well. Let's start off with the items that sold for the most money this month. I'm going to start off on the lower end and end with the highest price sale of all. Starting off on Poshmark, which I think the first handful are all on Poshmark. It was this Wilson's leather black fur lined belted moto leather jacket. I did list this one for $75. Someone sent me a $55 offer, which I accepted because I'm trying to get rid of all my coats. I'm not trying to hold on to any. They're way too bulky to have them stored. This one sold in 3 days. I did pay $17 for it, and when I was looking up comps, they weren't super convincing. It was cutting it real close whether I would be able to make a decent enough profit. But Wilson is such a classic leather goods brand. Also, the fact that it was fur lined and we were still right in the middle of the season for it when I picked it up. It's such a staple that I thought I will be able to make something off of this, and sure enough I did. I'm glad I picked that one up. There are many leather jackets that I have passed up just because they weren't convincing enough. So hopefully next year during winter time I gain more confidence to pick up more of these sales, because I'm sure that there's lots of potential to make lots of profit from those during the winter. Next, on Poshmark, again, as I said, a lot of these were on Poshmark. It was this Free People Movement packable puffer quilted jacket. This one I also listed for $75 and I accepted a $60 offer. This one sold the same day that I listed it. I found this one on a new rack. I'm really trying to be more aware of when these people come out with new racks and just kind of waiting for them to move and go put things up for me to go look real quick through their racks, because I don't want to bother them and be in their way. But I'm glad I found this one. I did pay $10 for it, so in the end that was an excellent profit. The only bad thing with this one is that she did leave me a bad review on Poshmark. She said something about there being some discoloration. I forget, I think she said on the collar, and she was just saying like there's no way you could have missed that, but apparently I did. And I mean, I put lights on the items when I'm getting them ready to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm not sure how that happened, but she left a review and she accepted the order and I got paid for it. So I would have given her a refund. Well, I mean, I guess it's not up to me, but I'm sure Poshmark would have given her a refund if she would have opened a return. Next, on Poshmark, I sold this Ace and Jig midi green floral cotton boho long pull-on skirt, also for $60, and in just 1 day. This skirt was so beautiful and unique. It had like pixelated floral designs everywhere, and when I found it, no comps were needed at all, because I know that Ace and Jigs has a decent following. They make very high quality clothing that's unique and it's worth a lot. Okay, I got interrupted, but we were talking about this Ace and Jig skirt. I paid like $2 to $3 for this skirt, so a very, very good profit on that one. Let's move on to the next one. It was these Fry Veronica Boots, they were dark gray, they had a buckle, and I used Western, biker, and moto as keywords for these. They sold for $63 in just 3 days. This is a fry style that is very sought after, the Veronica style. I've sold like 2 or 3 others in different colors. Plenty of the fry styles tend to sit, but this one usually sells quickly and for a high price. Again, on Poshmark, we have these Allen Edmonds wing tip Oxford dress shoes. They had the brogue detail, which is always good to see on dress shoes for men. I listed them for $80. They sold for $64 and they sold same day. This shoe has everything that I look for in men's dress shoes. Lace up, Oxford, wingtip, like I said, that brogue detail. It's a high quality brand in good condition, so great sale here. And then I also sold these Bed Stew high wedge brown leather boho strappy platform clog wedge sandals. I love when a title sounds like that, like just stuffed with keywords, because that just means it's an excellent pickup. When you run out of space and you have so much to say about the item, I think that's a good sign, and that was the case with these. I listed these for $82. In the end, I took a $69 offer and they sold in just 1 day. Last month, I also had a pair, or maybe it was a month before that, I also had a pair of sandals sell for high amount and ended up in this list. I think those were the Freebird sandals. So for me, when an item ends up in a high price list and it's out of season, that just lets you know that it's a good style or a good brand. So as we're moving into spring and summer, I hope to find more Bed Stew and Freebird sandals because the prices you get on those are very high. Finally, not a Poshmark sale, this time it's on Depop. It was the Sorel Hidden Wedge tall waterproof leather lace-up knee-high combat boots. I sold these for $100 and they took 4 days to sell. Apparently this was like a rare style by Sorel, which is why I was able to price it way higher than other boots nowadays by Sorel. This sale looks real good on paper, but it was actually terrible, you guys. This was my first international sale on Depop. I charged the buyer $20 for shipping, and then I used Pirate Ship to buy the label. When you use Pirate Ship, you get to choose which carrier you want to go with, so I went with UPS. It worked out. I think my price was right around the $20 or maybe a little bit more, and I thought all was good. I was really happy. I'm like, yay, this international thing is easy. I think I can continue doing it here on Depop. And then I got an email saying I owed like 50 something dollars extra. I didn't understand why. After doing some research, basically UPS is not a good company to go with if you're going to be shipping internationally using Pirate Ship. It's best to go with USPS, even though they charge a little bit more. In the end, you're not going to be getting like surprise charges like I did. At least for my research, using ChatGPT, going back and forth with it, trying to figure out what would be the best way to do it next time. That's what I got from that. So next time I'm using USPS, and also I'm going to be upping the amount I charge for international sales on Depop, at least for these heavier boots. So now we get to the highest price sale this month, which was on eBay, and it was these Nike Air Max special edition sneakers. They were a pretty pink color. Inside they were covered with velvet or velour material. They were very luxurious looking, very pretty. I listed them for $135. The customer used the coupon I have going on my eBay store right now, so in the end she paid me $108 and they sold in just 1 day. I paid $15 for these shoes. They were in great condition. The selling comps looked real good. The sell-through rate wasn't the best. It was like at a 30%. Usually when it's at that much, it takes about a month for the item to move, but in this case it sold in just 1 day, which I was really happy about. And that just goes to show that comps, the sell-through rate and the selling comps, are there to guide you. It's not necessarily always right. Sometimes you just happen to list something at the perfect time and the customer is online right at that time looking for what you just listed, and you make the sale faster than expected. Now we're going to get into some of these lower price sales. Some of them I do consider terrible, but some of them it's just me testing things out and I'm not mad about it. The first one I am, well, kind of. It was these Kalia white stretchy leggings. These sold for $13 and they took 189 days to sell. When I relist items, I do go in order from oldest to newest. So I have finally made it to the stack of leggings that I bought when I first started reselling clothing again. I'm relisting all of those things. I think that my listing skills weren't as good with clothing back then. So I'm reworking the titles, and also I've gotten better at pricing clothing. So now I see that these were not worth nearly as much as I thought. So after making those adjustments, I am starting to see a lot of these leggings that I picked up back then start to move at a lower price than I expected initially. But as long as they move and I get my money back and a couple bucks here and there extra, I am good with it. Next is more of an experiment. It was this Peter Pan collared shirt. It was black, it was sheer, and I used preppy and academia as keywords. This was by Adriana Papel, but the brand didn't really matter. I picked it up based on style, which is why I didn't even bother putting that in the title, that brand name. It sold for $13 and took 51 days to sell. So after Poshmark's fee of $3 and the $2 to $3 that I paid for this shirt, in the end my final profit for it was $7, which is not bad at all in my book because all of it adds up in the end. But the thing is that if I'm going to be making $5, $6, $7 profit on something, I prefer it to be at least a fast sell. Next on Depop, I sold these flare side stride bootcut athletic yoga pants. They sold for $13, but the great thing here is that Depop doesn't have listing fees. I only paid like $1 or so payment processing fee, and they only took 4 days to sell. That's what I like to see when it comes to lower end profit sales like this one. I used to leave anything behind that would not generate at least like a $15 profit, but now I'm being more open-minded with that kind of stuff. If I anticipate something selling quick, I don't care if the profit is on the lower end. Next on Poshmark, this low price sale was these Prana red stretchy workout pull-on leggings. They sold for $10, which is an offer I gladly accepted, and they took 180 days to sell. Leggings is my least favorite category to go through at the thrift store. Those super tight leggings just don't sell for that much or that quick anymore, unless it's a very, very good brand like some Arc'teryx or something like that. I found some of those that sold a lot quicker and for more money than these. So any leggings that are ankle tight, I'm taking all offers and sending super low offers because I just want to get rid of them. And then the other low price that I'm going to talk about here is this Aeropostale crop boxy oversized pullover sweater. This was my sweater that I wore lots of times. I had it for many years, and after doing some decluttering, I decided to go ahead and list this one instead of donating it or taking it to Plato's. I felt this was worth listing because of that oversized boxy fit. That is a style that is going strong right now with sweaters and tops. So in the end, this sale was pure profit, which is great. Moving on to some items that sold real quick for me this past month. Not necessarily for the best prices, but they flipped quick, which I like. First on Depop, I sold this Abercrombie tennis dress. It sold for $20 and it took just 1 day to sell. For me, this dress was a test, and I say it went real good because it sold at a decent price and it sold quick. What I'm doing with these style-based past pickups is just testing the waters, and when I do, I start it at a lower price just to see if it sells. And then next time I pick up that same style, I'll try to price it up just a little just to see how much I can get for it. I don't want to overprice it and then have it sit unnecessarily. So that's why I like to start it more on the lower end, basically to validate if it's an item that is desirable or not. And the plan is to just slowly inch up the price. Next, I sold these LL Bean moccasin dark brown loafers. These sold for $25 and they were listed for just one day as well. I mentioned in one of my most recent hauls that LL Bean shoes have been doing real good for me. I didn't find them a lot in the past, but lately I've been finding a ton of them, and a lot of them actually have decent comps when I look them up. Next, I sold these Talbot's rhinestone gray flannel pointed toe preppy career work loafer flat shoes. Again, lots of keywords, which tells me it's a great shoe to try to resell. They sold for $25 and they were listed for just one day as well. I definitely do not pick up every single Talbot shoe I see, but I do have very good luck with these old money preppy looking Talbot shoes, and the thrift stores don't price up this brand that much. So when I find these styles, I like to pick them up because there's plenty of room for profit since I'm not paying that much for them. Next, I sold these Johnny Was silk velvet black jogger pants. These sold for $26 again in just one day. I almost missed these pants as I was quickly going through the pants section. I had to backtrack and I was like, wait, did that say JWLA, which stands for Johnny Was Los Angeles? The first thing I did was looked at the material tag. I saw that it was in fact silk velvet material. So I was like, oh yeah, I think this is Johnny Was. And once I looked it up on the eBay research tool, I saw that the comps were not that great. The sell-through rate was slow, but the price was okay. But since these were only priced at like $2, I thought, you know what, I think that I could make these work. And I mentioned this many times before, but if something shows up for me as a slow seller, if I'm able to get it at a cheap price and price it a lot lower than other people, then I still get it because I know that I can price it lower to make it move faster, and that was the case with these pants. Next, on eBay, I sold this Go Rug Simple Windbreaker rain jacket. I did list this one for $30. After a coupon, they paid $24, and again, this sold in just one day. This one is on the way back to me as a return because I accidentally put it in the men's category instead of the women's. So as soon as I get it back, I'll be relisting it, and I know that it's going to sell quickly again because this brand, Go Rug, is one that people do look out for. It's like a fitness type brand that makes durable, high quality utility type pieces. So look at this tag and remember it. This one was a lightweight jacket and still sold for a decent price and quickly. So there are many other items out there that are going to do a lot better than this one, or at least sell for more money. Next, on Poshmark, I sold these Rudy's Reselling shoes for $30 in just one day as well. When I looked at these shoes, they looked high quality, and then I felt them. They felt high quality. That's what made me look them up. Comps looked amazing. Sell-through rate and sell price were very good. So now this is a bolo for me. When I go to the thrift store and I'm looking through the men's section, I'm going to be looking out for this brand from now on. Then we have this Garnet Hill dark green cotton pullover relaxed oversized pocket sweater top. It sold for $32 in just one day. So far, I am really liking this Garnet Hill brand. I think this is the third time I pick it up, and all the times it's performed pretty good, just like this one. Same with this next one, this marine layer graphic pullover sweater. It sold for $30, and this one sold the same day that I listed it. I do skip a lot of marine layer pieces, especially their pants, because when I look those up, the data just does not look good at all. But when it comes to graphic sweaters, this is how they usually perform for me. They sell same or next day and for a higher price than the pants. Next, I sold these X Element motorcycle black leather slip resistant lace up biker riding boots. They sold for $55, again, same day. Anytime that I see real moto style boots like these, I look them up because these things are expensive, and a lot of the times, as long as they're not like a notable brand like Harley Davidson, the thrift stores aren't going to price them up. So that leaves me with a lot of room for profit. I paid like $8 for these, so in the end, a great sale. Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire go through some items that took a very long time to sell. And I do this every month, as you know. List items that took too long, but these took even longer than some of the other ones I've mentioned in past income reports. First, we have these Ann Taylor dressy bow ballet tan patent leather flats. It is stuffed with keywords because I relisted it probably like 2 or 3 times and just try to work the title to get these things moving. They sold for $22 and they took 499 days to sell. I've mentioned this many times, but back in the day, ballet flats was just an instant pickup for me, even in lower end brands like Ann Taylor. As long as I paid very little for them, I'd pick them up because they were selling like crazy for me, and then they stopped. Now I'm being more picky with ballet flats. Same with this next one. There were these Clark's platform slingback sandals. I spelled slingback wrong, but they still sold for $22, but they took 534 days to sell. As I mentioned many times before, Clark's died for me. It used to do really good, picked everything up no matter what, as long as the price was decent, and it would sell. I would sell a lot of them every single month, but not anymore. Next, we have these Soul Society peep toe ankle booties. These sold for $20 in 559 days. I had a little good run with Soul Society, so I made that classic mistake where something does good for you, so then you go all out and buy every single one. That's what I did with this, and a lot of them ended up sitting for me. Now I skipped this brand a whole bunch. I will pick some of it up if I see that the comps are good, but for the most part, I don't even take the time to look them up. Next, we have these UGG Koolaburra, which is like their lower end brand, fuzzy sandals. They sold for $20 and they took 617 days to sell. At the time that I picked these up, the fuzzy type slides were kind of popular, and the fact that they were UGG, I thought that these would do good. But just like Clark's, UGG has fell off a cliff for me. It does not do good at all. I pass up so much of it at the store, and I most definitely pass up this lower end brand by them, Koolaburra, because they just do not sell anymore. Next, we have these Michael Kors rain boots. They were brown, croc embossed, equestrian looking, so I thought they would end up doing good, but they didn't. They sold for $20 and took 710 days to sell. And this right here just is a classic example that not all good brands sell for good money online. Michael Kors is like a mid-tier luxury brand, I'd say. It's also gone down in value over the years, but even many years ago, not all Michael Kors was worth reselling. That was the case then, and it's definitely the case now. Sometimes there is a direct correlation between high-end and brands that sell for a lot of money will also do well on marketplaces, but sometimes there's not, and that is definitely the case with Michael Kors and Coach. Only very selective things are worth reselling. All right, now let's break down the total sales numbers. In January, I made a total of $6,448 across all of the platforms that I sell on. From there, after all of the fees, shipping costs, returns, and everything that these platforms take out, they deposited into my bank $4,301. Now, if we take the average cost of goods for everything that sold in the month of January out of those earnings, I am left with a total of $2,911 in final profit. Again, just very similar to the previous month, but the inventory breakdown is a little bit different here. here. Not the number of items that I listed. That pretty much stayed the same. I listed 170 items, which averages out to about 5 brand new listings that I put up on these platforms every day. But the total sold items was actually 200, which went up a little bit. I was just sending a lot of discounted offers on my oldest items and also accepting any low offers that came in on those older listings. I did relist just a little bit more than last month, but still not as consistent as I should be with the relisting. That always helps older items move, but still a handful did, and at a lower cost. So I sold the 200 items. That averages out to about 6 to 7 daily sales. Average selling price ended up being $32.24. Average cost of goods was $6.95. And in the end, my average profit per item went down to $14.56. I think last month I was around $16, which is what I prefer to be at, if not at least $15. But I guess $14.50 is not that far off. And again, I think that average, well, I know that average profit went down a bit because of me accepting and sending super low offers on the older inventory that I'm trying to get rid of. Now, let's talk about each individual platform. On Poshmark, I sold a total of 116 items for a total of $3,034. eBay, I sold 48 items for a total of $2,087. And then we have Depop with 30 sales. Again, just like last month, I think I was right around 30, and I also made right around $1,000 on Depop last month, and I hit that again. I made $1,132. So those three platforms performed very similar to last month. That's the kind of numbers I like to see on each of those platforms. I am really happy with those. But when it comes to Mercari, it's tripping again. I sold 6 items for $194. The only thing I can think of that I did different this month than the previous month, where I had more sales on Mercari, is the discounts that I did. Towards the end of the month, I dropped my prices and do discounts and sales on all platforms, or at least I try to. On Mercari this time, I used the discount where you drop the price just like you do on Poshmark, instead of that 72-hour sale discount. That did not bring in nearly as many sales as the 72-hour sale, so I think I'm going back to that this month. Instead of dropping prices on Mercari to try to increase my sales at the end of the month, I'm going to be doing 72-hour sales because that seems to work better. So we'll see if Mercari improves next month. If it performs like this 3 straight months in a row, that's when I'm going to consider cutting it off again. So this month, 6 sales. We'll see what happens next month. So aside from Mercari, as I've mentioned, the numbers stayed pretty much the same for me this previous month. And again, I'm okay with it because at this season in my life, I have very limited time and energy to invest into reselling. So I'm happy that I'm at least able to maintain it. But now this is where we're going to transition into the topic of, is reselling really worth it? Before we get into all of the details though, I do want to share that me coming on here every month and sharing the behind the scenes of my numbers, breaking it all down and exposing all of that information is not an easy thing to do, because I am opening myself up to criticism, judgment, and opinions from other people, which is not the case most of the time here on my channel. The comments I get are supportive, and people are just grateful that I'm sharing all of these things that I'm learning as I'm growing myself. So I am grateful myself for that my comment section is pretty much positive overall. But there are times that people leave comments letting me know that they disagree with some of the things I do, that they would do things differently, or that the amount of money that I make reselling is not good. I don't get too bothered by those comments. when they do come up, because I know that we're all just living in different places, different eras in our lives, and just have different perspectives about everything. But right now we're talking about reselling, and what is good for one person is not for another. So I keep that in mind and then just answer back as respectfully as I can and keep it moving. Second thing, before we break the numbers down into an hourly basis, is that reselling is a very part-time thing for me. Sometimes it takes up more of my time than other times, but I'm very flexible with it. Overall, it's a very part-time thing. I do other things, such as this YouTube channel to make income. I have digital products. I have Amazon books, some that I've written myself and others that I've had ghost written. And then, of course, as many of you know, I do have 4 kiddos that I take care of. I do that on my own for the most part. I'm the sole provider of these kids. So it may seem like reselling is a huge part of my life because that's all I talk about on this channel, and it is, but it's not. I invest normally around 20 hours into reselling, sometimes a little less and sometimes a little more, but I think that's a good average. I try to track my time every once in a while just to kind of see where I stand with all of these sources of income and the amount of time that I invest into them. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and do some math. I'm going to break what I made this month down by the hour. So let me go back up here. I made a total of $2,900 this month. It's $2,911, but I'm going to be rounding everything down just to keep things simple. If we take those $2,900 and we divide it by 4, that means that I made a total of $725 a week, and that is the profit that I made after all selling fees and cost of goods for the items that sold. Now, if we take those $725 and divide it by the 20 hours that I worked on this business, that leaves me with $36 an hour. It's $36.25, but again, we're just rounding everything up or down just to keep things simple. Now that's $36 an hour, but something we have to account for here is taxes. The amount of taxes you have to pay out of your income is going to depend on where you live, the deductions you have, the dependents you put on your taxes as well, and so many other things. It's just really going to vary a whole lot. But for me, I like to put aside 20% of my income for taxes, and that seems to work out well. If you want to know what's a good percentage for you, I suggest you go to your local CPA somewhere around you, explain to them your situation so that they can let you know, and you can have that number in mind to be putting it aside throughout the year. Or if you don't want to do that, you can also just go to GPT to have at least a general idea. Just explain to GPT what you do, what deductions you have, your dependents, and everything else, so that it can give you at least a general idea of how much you should be putting aside for taxes. So with that said, we're going to do 20% of 36, which is $7.20. Out of every $36, that's how much I should be putting aside. So I'm going to do 36 minus the $7.20. That leaves us with $28.80. Again, I'm going to round, so that's going to be $29 an hour reselling after taxes. I want to throw a few quick disclaimers in here before we wrap up this hourly pay breakdown. First, as far as I know, taxes are technically supposed to be calculated after all business expenses are deducted. That $2,900 profit I showed already includes cost of goods and platform fees taken out, but it does not include other expenses I do have, like supplies, gas, services, tools, and a few other things. I estimated the taxes earlier in the process before deducting all that, just to keep things simple for this video and also just to keep things conservative. I rather overestimate what I set aside for taxes than underestimate. estimate. So because of that, that $29 per hour does not include all of those additional operating costs. I do calculate that number. I break everything down to figure out exactly what it costs me to process an item, including gas, tolls, services, help from my kids, supplies, and everything else. And that operating cost does vary a bit each time I calculate it, because it's just going to depend on how much help I paid for that month. Supply costs change sometimes too. Like not that long ago, Poshmark stopped using priority mail, so then I had to buy my own supplies for a while before I got the Ground Advantage supplies. So little things like that is always going to change that final operating cost here and there. But even if we were to knock out $4 off of that $29 per hour to account for all of those expenses, I think that would be more than enough, and that would bring me closer to around $25 per hour instead. And then as a final disclaimer, I want to say that this is not a formal accounting report. None of this is financial advice either. It's just a practical way for me to understand whether my business model makes sense for me at any given time. It keeps it simple for me to just get a bird's eye view of what's going on in my business too. So in the end, that's probably about how much I'd make at a regular job, at a decent job, $25 an hour. But from there, I would also have to deduct the gas as well and other expenses that may come with it. But let's just leave it at that, 25. To some people that may be good, to some people it may not be worth it, but to me it's so worth it, more than anything, because I have control over my time. I'm able to be there for my kids when they need me. I drop them off, pick them up, take them to sports, whatever they need, I'm there, and I can move my schedule around to make sure that happens. I also get to employ my kids and teach them about this business. That's something that they're going to be able to take with them for the rest of their lives. And since I'm able to move my schedule around how I want, I also am able to make time for these other side hustles and these other projects like YouTube and Amazon. And then another very great thing about doing reselling is that you have control over how much money you make. To a certain degree, I get it, because these platforms make changes and sometimes you have to pivot. Your income may go down for a little bit. So many things can happen. But for the most part, if you want to make more money, if you want to give yourself a raise, all you have to do is put in a little more work. Source some more, list some more, go on more platforms. There's so many things you can do. Whereas in most jobs, you're capped at whatever your hourly pay is until you get a raise next time. So all that to say that in my opinion, reselling is so worth it. I make decent money even on very slow months and decent months like this one. And more than anything, I love the control that I have over my day and my schedule. As I said, sharing all of these numbers, breaking it all down is not an easy thing to do, but I do it because I know that many people who are just getting into reselling will find this kind of information helpful. And also, I just like to be as honest and transparent as I can be by sharing the good and the bad of reselling. If you found this information helpful, make sure you hit the thumbs up down below this video. Subscribe so that you're notified every time I post a video. I'll leave a playlist right here of even more reseller income reports you can go watch. And that's all for me today. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.